Not too bad. Maybe a little closer to the mic would be good.
I can do that.
Perfect.
I can lean in a little bit.
Thank you.
Thanks. Um, Thank you for the opportunity to speak again today. I've spoken with many of you in the past on this topic, and I can tell you honestly, I wasn't planning on coming back to pitch student worker living wage again today. It was not my plan. I don't I don't want to be here asking for student living wage any more than you want to be here listening to me talk about it. And if you would agree to pass a living wage for city summer student employees just to not hear me talking about it again, I would be fine with that. 3.5 years ago, 9 sitting members of this council indicated to the Hamilton District Labor Council that they supported, quote, all City of Hamilton employees, including part-time, summer, and casual, should immediately make at least a living wage, end quote. A majority of you have not lived up to that commitment, and this is the current council's last chance to do so. So why am I here again? Well, there was some immediate information that came out and pressing information which came out with regards to student living wage in the papers a couple of weeks ago. We know that at the beginning of January, minimum wage went up to $15, which is a poverty wage. $15 minimum wage is a poverty wage. Living wage recently went up to $17.20. That is a poverty line wage. If you make below that, you're living in poverty in this city with all of the expenses. And to be honest with you, like many people feel, including myself, even $17.20 isn't enough in this city with all of the expenses to raise you out of poverty. A couple of weeks ago, your acting general manager of public works was quoted in the Spectator indicating that with the minimum wage increase, where a city student job used to be attractive to workers, the city was now at a level playing field. And this year, because the city wage was at $15, that the applications were not coming in, and many of those jobs are in danger of being unfilled. He also said that if you think about it, some students might not be too happy about working in the heat, working in the rain, but they can make the same money if they work at a burger joint. When I read this, I saw here was an opportunity a few years ago to say, let's pay these student workers a living wage so that we wouldn't be in this situation that we are now, where we're not getting people applying for these jobs, which are important jobs, which help the city. I've heard and I've read anecdotal comments from counselors in the past with regards to student living wage. Let me be clear. It's not about whether you as a counselor had to scrape by on minimum wage as a student. Your tuition was proportionally cheaper. Your rent was proportionally cheaper. Your family's expenses at the time were proportionally cheaper. Their debt of students today is proportionally way more than 1 or 2 generations ago. Their career prospects are rapidly disappearing to the point where their prospects are a life of precarious work. With all the privilege that I had growing up in Hamilton, I had a decade of debt after completing post-secondary education. I don't want young workers today to have to go through tough times as a way to suffer or build character. Forcing young workers to suffer through poverty wages is not noble, nor is it a sign of good character on council's behalf or anyone's behalf. These students are doing valuable work for the city. Your wages are undervaluing their work, and you're seeing the impact of that, undervaluing right now with the lack of applications coming in. So I would encourage you for one final time for this council, and I appreciate you having to suffer through me sitting here and what many of you probably think is either A, grandstanding or being patronizing or speaking down to you. That's never been my intention. Many of you who I've spoken to individually, you know I'm about as plain spoken and about as honest as I can be when I'm in person with you one-on-one as I have been delegating in front of this council. I ask you to please, for the final time for this council's term, help lift students out of poverty, help lift families out of poverty, take this council's last budget opportunity to finally ensure that every City of Hamilton employee gets paid a living wage. It's not about whether you could scrape by, it's about today's young workers and their ability to succeed at city jobs and being able to transition through being a student to being a lifelong resident and a worker in the City of Hamilton. I thank you for your time, and I hope this last time that I get to speak on this will be the time that convinces you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Councillor Nan, I see that you have a question. The floor is yours.
Thank you through you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Anthony, for being here today. I was wondering if you would come, especially after hearing Acting General Manager of Public Works share with all of committee during our budget deliberations of the Public Works budget for this year about the fact that applications are not coming in. And the fact that last year we had to post our applications being open several times in order to get enough applications in to fill, I think, almost all of the positions. I didn't hear the final response in terms of whether or not we got full applications and all positions covered last year. And it's concerning. It's concerning to me as a counselor. It's concerning to me from the perspective of providing good service that our residents have come to rely on, especially during the summer months when we're able to take advantage, right? Take advantage of students being available to be employed. And it's concerning. My question to you is, as the president of the Labor Council and as somebody who is watching the market and watching the experience workers are having. Is this something that you're noticing to be a reality across sectors in terms of entry level positions and specifically for young people that are coming in at a minimum wage versus those positions that are valued and where students are experiencing higher wage sets? Any comments you can share in terms of market analysis there?
Anthony?
Sure, and I'm not going to discount what I've also I read some comments around the article that came out a couple of weeks ago as well, with regards to the fact that yes, there were some income supports that came out during COVID, which means that some students might not be applying that might have been applying in the past. I do appreciate that, but it's a larger trend than that, and it's a more persistent trend than that. We have young workers now. I wouldn't even just say young workers. I would say even workers who are adults who are in their 30s and their 40s who have gotten to the point now where they realize there is a lot of minimum wage employment out there, and they don't feel threatened anymore by leaving a minimum wage job and saying we deserve more. Um, when asking for something like a living wage, I would assume that some people on council think, well, we could rectify this by instead of making it $15, if we made it $15.75, that would be great. Let's do that. But ultimately, like many people know, uh, the minimum wage is now tied to the cost of inflation. And so the minimum wage is going to be going up every year. Adopting a living wage not only takes the scenario whereby in 2 years, this could be exactly the same thing, where now 15.75 or 15.60 or 15 whatever is going to be the new $15, and you're still going to have a shortage of people applying. Adopting that living wage on a perpetual basis keeps the city's wages competitive for summer student workers. And ultimately, what I know I would think that the city would appreciate is it also encourages retention, whereby somebody who's in post secondary, you don't get those people walking away from these jobs now. They think that a city summer job is a good job and maybe come back for their first, second, third, and fourth year of being a student. That retention is going to be of a huge benefit when you don't have to train those workers as much. You don't have to spend that money on training and they get right to work as soon as they come in. The benefits are there. The threat, the threat over the past, I would say, couple years, especially during COVID, of people being afraid of leaving a minimum wage job are not there anymore. And some people might think that that's a shame. I happen to think that that's great. I happen to think that's an example of workers being able to finally step up for their rights and being able to say, my job is worth more than that. You should be paying me worth more than that. And I think the reflection of what we saw in the article a couple of weeks ago is a broader spectrum reflection of what you're seeing. By not even applying, people are expressing dissatisfaction. And that's something that hopefully the city can find a way to overcome within the next, I would say, very short while to make that application process a little bit more attractive to student workers next year.
Thank you, Anthony, for coming in and also for your response there. I think it is something that we do need to take an honest, sober look at. The reality is before us as a council, and I think that ignoring it or not wanting to deal with it head on is not taking leadership at a time when the economy still needs to be recovered. But most importantly, we've heard consistently over this pandemic from leading economists, including the heads of Bank of Canada, as well as the Bank of and in the United States, central bankers saying that unless we address the needs of workers at the heart of our economic recovery, there will not be one. So I thank you for being here.